Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So today I want to talk about 5 stocks I'm watching right now. Okay, this is in August of 2020. So here they are. Nothing secret here. Micron, Seritage Growth Properties, Facebook, Google, and Uber. Now these are my target buy prices. If the stock gets down to this price, that's the price I want to pull the trigger and buy some stock, okay? But let me tell you a little story first. So back in 2012, Monish Pabrai did a lecture at Ivy Business School. And during the Q&A of that lecture, someone asked him, I want to start a fund. How should I do it? And essentially what Pabrai told him was you should start a shameless cloner fund. Turn your brain off, copy great ideas from great investors, and simply hold those positions until it's disclosed that those investors have sold off those stocks. Okay? There was a paper written, I think it was like 2008, showing that if you had simply copied Warren Buffett for 30 years, between 1977 and 2007, okay, you would have generated annual returns of like 20% versus the S&P, which was something like, I think it was maybe 10.5%. So you're basically doubling the S&P just by finding a great investor. I hate when that freezes. Just by finding a great investor and buying what they buy and then selling when they sell. It's as simple as that. So these 5 stocks that I'm watching now are really built around that model of turning my brain off, watching what the great investors are doing, and setting my ego aside and just doing what they're doing. Okay, so let's talk about these positions. Micron. Micron is owned by some fantastic investors, most notably Monish Pabrai. It's like 63% of his U.S. equity portfolio right now. And Li Lu. Li Lu actually got into Micron, I think a little bit after Monish Pabrai. And Li Lu, the majority of his purchase of Micron was somewhere around $42 per share. I think Monish got it a little bit less, maybe in the mid 30s per share. So that's basically what I set as my target buy price. That low price during the quarter when Li Lu bought most of his Micron share. But you can see great investors, David Tepper, Guy Spear, Prem Watsa, fantastic investors pulling the trigger on Micron. Another thing that Monish Pabrai says is you don't really get to know a business until after you own it, until after you own stock in it. So, just because it gets down to the buy price, that doesn't mean I'm going to put all of my money in at that price. I'm going to kind of ease into it, all right? Maybe 5% of the portfolio when it hits this target buy price. And then perhaps more as I learn more about it, or if it drops significantly from there. But I mean, Monish Pabrai, basically his number one tip for investors is clone great ideas, copy the best. It's such a hack in the world of investing. I want to note though, if you do copy someone else's idea and you don't really know why they bought into that stock, you don't understand the investment thesis, there is a vulnerability. And the way to get around that vulnerability is to wait to sell until you can see that super investor has sold. Because the danger is really if the stock price moves around a lot, particularly if the stock price goes down, that can really shake your confidence if you don't understand the business if you don't understand the investment thesis, if you really don't know why it's a great investment, you can get knocked out, you can get scared and sell off at the wrong time. So it's really important, if you're going to take this shameless cloning approach, that you clearly identify your strategy for when you're going to sell, and you're not making decisions based on short-term price fluctuations. That's the biggest thing to remember here. Stock number 2 on the list, Seritage Growth Properties. So you guys have talked about Seritage before. I'm still in the process of really wrapping my head around the assets of Seritage, what those are worth, both in a fire sale, if Seritage has to liquidate some properties in order to meet its short-term obligations, and over the longer term, what are those assets, what are those properties worth, particularly if Seritage can add value to them like it wants to, can redevelop into multifamily or some other type of real estate that fetches a higher income, a higher rent than the original Sears or Kmart kind of properties. So look for a video very soon on Seritage. I'm actually teaming up with another subscriber, Scott, and we're going to try to put our heads together and come up with a net asset value for Seritage, and I'll be sharing that for sure. So, Seritage, Pabrai, I'm thinking he bought in around $8 per share back in May. The price has jumped up quite a bit since then. It's 28% higher than my target price of 10. But Micron is very close to my target price, so that's something I'm getting excited about. Facebook, number 3. Now, Facebook is the most owned stock by super investors in Dataroma. There's 27 super investors who own Facebook. I was quite surprised to see that, just because it's not really what I would think of as a value investment. It's a growth company, but at the prices that it's been at recently, it has been a compelling value investment compared to what it's earning, compared to kind of a reasonable projection of growth. It's been trading at very fair, probably even a discount from fair prices. So back in beginning of April of 2020, it was around this 155 mark. Obviously, it's gone up a lot since then. I mean, when you're the biggest share, the biggest holding by super investors, that's going to push the price up a bit. So, it's 69% more expensive right now than my target buy price. But I use Facebook. I use Instagram all the time. I keep in touch with people on Facebook, so I'm very familiar with Facebook's products. I use WhatsApp, and Facebook seems very well positioned to take advantage of kind of the next big tech innovation space of augmented reality and virtual reality. So I'm very curious to see what happens to Facebook over the next 3, 5, 10 years. I still think it has a lot of growth potential, even though it's already a pretty big company. So that's what I'll say about Facebook. Google. So Google, it's funny, Monish Pabrai actually owned Google a number of years ago. I think it might have been 2017 or something like that. And in one of his talks, he was talking about how, if he ever owns a great business like Google, he's never going to sell. That's a long-term compounder. He's just going to hold on. And of course, he did sell Google. So that was kind of a curious move from Pabrai. But Google happens to be the second most owned stock by super investors, according to Dataroma. and it's closer to my target buy price, 40% above right now. And again, at the beginning of April, this is about what it was, $1,100 per share. And of course, you're watching this video right now on a Google platform. YouTube is owned by Google. Yeah, so many Google products that I use like every day. And there's a really good Value Investors Club write-up on Google, just highlighting all of the assets that they own and all of the assets that they haven't even really tried to monetize. So if Google wanted to unlock value from a lot of different assets, it could. So it has so many valuable properties, so many valuable businesses within the umbrella of Alphabet. So I would love to own Google. It would have to come down quite a bit from current prices, but I think that's quite feasible, maybe within the next year or so, that it could come down that much. And then finally, Uber. So, I use Uber. I've actually driven for Uber for periods in my life. So Aswath Damodaran, I've talked about him before on the channel. He is a really thoughtful valuation professor and practitioner. He's written books about business valuation. So my dad is actually a financial advisor, and I noticed on my dad's shelf there's a book by Aswath Damodaran, on corporate finance or whatever, and it's from the 80s, right? The 1980s. So this guy, Damodaran, has been in the game a long time. He has a ton of experience, and he's not afraid to try to value companies like Uber that are still very early stage, still losing money. And it's a lot harder to value companies like that than it is to value a company like Google or Facebook that have this, they've been growing earnings for so long, fairly consistently. It's much easier to value a company like that. But, Damodaran would say, the harder a company is to value, the more upside, the higher the potential payoff from doing that valuation. So, check out his channel if you want to see him value Uber. He valued it at $36 per share. And, so I figure, well, if it gets down to 2/3 of that, I'm happy to own some. And of course, it got down much lower than that earlier this year. It got down to like $15 per share. So I'm really kicking myself for not buying Uber 6 months ago. Same with Facebook. Facebook was down around like $143 per share or something like that in March. I knew it was a deal then, but of course I put on my market timing hat and thought, well, the market's going to keep going down. I'm just going to wait, because if I buy now, I'm going to kick myself because it's going to be cheaper tomorrow and even cheaper the next day. And I missed it. I totally missed the ball on that one. So I do own some Micron. I own some Seritage. I'm hoping to get another shot at Facebook. And I'm hoping to get another shot at Uber. And it's a good reminder to me, when you have your target buy price, buy at least some when it gets down to that. Don't feel like what's coming tomorrow. Don't suddenly be a macro economist thinking how to predict what the next week, month, year are going to look like. So it's a good reminder to me to not do that. And if Uber gets back down to 24, which it's not too far off now, dipped below 30 recently, I'm going to buy some if it gets down to 24. And I think that's it, guys. Here are the 5 stocks I'm watching now, hoping they get down to these buy prices, because I'm very happy to own them at those prices. Curious to hear from you guys what you think of these 5 stocks. and if you own any. I'm curious, if you're buying any of these, and what your thesis is on these companies. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. I will see you in the next video. Take care.